Well, hi guys, welcome, and who dat? I'm Joe. Thanks for tuning in to Rosenfield 10, where I cover our beloved, bless you boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. If you're a Who Dat fan, subscribe to my channel. Put me in your subscriptions anytime you see a video of mine. I'm talking about our beloved Saints. You let me know what you think in the comments down low. I respond to my comments. And today we're going to talk about the winners and the losers of the Week 1 preseason matchup that saw our beloved Saints fall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Final score 24-20. Well, the most important thing about the preseason games is you get to see a bunch of players who make your team look good, and then there's a bunch of players fighting for those bottom of the barrel roster spots, and you hope that some of them stand out and they do enough to make the team. You hope you don't have an entire game full of incompetency. Well, a lot of players did not play in this preseason game. And the ones that are actually going to be on the roster played in the first half. And most of them looked pretty good. The halftime score was 20-6. Saints winning ahead comfortably. And then the second half started where all of the bottom of the barrel feeders came in, most of them that aren't even going to make the practice squad. And then that's when the Saints ended up losing the game. So anybody that knows football and preseason knows this. I'll explain it to you by showing you our 90-man roster real quick and giving you a visual of how this actually went down. So here's the offense. This is your offense for the 90-man roster for the Saints. Yep, and remember, we're only keeping 53 players out of 90. There's your offensive players. Now let's take away all of the players that did not participate in this game. There you go. So you see, pretty much everybody at the top of every position group, everybody that's going to be a starter, that's going to be playing for this team, not participating in the game. The lowly guys you see toward the bottom there that are at the top of the list now, yep, a lot of those guys looked pretty good. So yeah, there's 16 players here on offense that didn't play. Now let's pull up the defense. There's your defensive players from our 90-man roster. Now let's take away all of the players on defense that did not play in the game. There you go. 20 of them. 20 players did not play in this game. Most of them starting for the Saints this season. And what you got left at the top of the list are the guys that are pretty much fighting for those last lowly 17 spots on the 53-man roster. Yeah, 36 of your 53-man roster didn't play. And what you got, 17 players trying to make a team, including 2 of them kickers. So there you go. So that's preseason and probably going to be preseason for the rest of the preseason this year because the Saints have joint practices with every team we have a preseason game with. This is an anomaly that I've never experienced in my life. The Saints have never practiced with every team that they played in preseason. Not in my 55 years. So there you go. The starters are going to be in the joint practices, and then the preseason games are going to be a bunch of backups trying to make a case to be on our practice squad. So the Jaguars win 24-20, but what really mattered was what happened in the first half. And there were some really good performances and some not so good performances. So first, we're going to take a look at the winners in this past week's preseason game, and I've got a list of them here. Quarterback Zach Wilson. Everybody says he's a bust because he was a top 5 pick, a first-round pick for the Jets, right? And he's been with several teams since then. Only lasted 1 year with one team, then went to, I think, Denver, and only lasted 1 year there. So this guy was a bust starter for the Jets, and now he's kind of like a journeyman. Well, he's 28, 27 years old. And Actually, he looks to me like a pretty good quarterback if you expect him to be your backup. If you expect him to be your starter and to go out there and to play great, he's going to have to fit in the system and he's going to have a lot of weapons around him. And maybe he hasn't been in a system that really, shows his how good he can be. Maybe this Kellen Moore system is exactly what he needs. But I'm not going to get too high about his performance. He had a touchdown. He had over 100 and I think 40 yards passing in about 5 drives. Most of it came in 2 drives. Yeah, he looked really efficient. He was also playing against Jacksonville's backups, so I can't get too excited about it. But hey, you do what you play with who you're playing with. You make do with what you got. Okay, we gave him some lemons. He made lemonade, right? He did all right. So okay, Zach Wilson, thumbs up. He deserves a shot to play with the second team. Maybe, maybe he should start a preseason game. Maybe Spencer Rattler should come in after Zach Wilson. Maybe once. Maybe Zach Wilson should get some second team reps this week in practice. Maybe Spencer Rattler gets some third team reps. Maybe. We'll get back to Spencer Rattler in a second. Next on this list of winners, running back Ty Chandler. He averaged over 5 yards a carry. He didn't have but a couple of carries. No, I think he averaged 4 yards a carry. Pardon me, 4 yards a carry exactly. But he had the big kick return to start the game, 86 yards. If you put Ty Chandler back there along with Barry and Brown, they're not going to have very many places to kick the ball without a dynamic player bringing the ball back. Problem is, Ty Chandler's got a long way to go to make this team. He may have looked good in this game, but it's because we have a lot of injured players. First of all, your starters, Achan and Kamara, weren't playing. And then your primary running backs after that, Kendre Miller and Devin Neal, both of them weren't playing because they're both injured. So then you have Audric Estime, who is clearly your fifth running back, could possibly be your number 3 or number 4, but he's clearly in the top 5 ahead of Chandler and Donaldson. And yeah, Estime got hurt because Rattler threw a bad ball, but I'm not sure if he's going to be out for an extended amount of time. The only way, in my opinion, Ty Chandler makes this team is if these injuries to these other running backs extend into the regular season. So kudos to Ty Chandler for what he did in the preseason game. He's got some veteran experience, and I expect to see a lot of Ty Chandler in preseason if these other running backs don't get healthy and don't play. Because you're not going to run Travis Achan and Alvin Kamara in preseason. You're not going to do that. Maybe for a drive or two, but yeah, you're not going to do that. So I'm looking for Kendre Miller to come back. I'm looking for Devin Neal to come back. Both of them need to be on the field. Audric Estime come back. And yeah, you'd be 5 deep at running back then. So Ty Chandler, good story. Probably do a lot more. It'd be great to keep him on the practice squad, especially if we can get some competent return ability. We want Barry and Brown doing it. I'm thinking cornerback Jaden Price might be that other kick returner alongside Barry and Brown. I'm thinking that's the route we should go. So who are the other standouts on offense? Wide receiver Trey Palmer and wide receiver Bub Means. For a while there, I thought Trey Palmer was going to be the only guy catching the ball. We kept going to him over and over again, and it was okay. He's a veteran. He's savvy. He's had an okay camp, and he made some really impressive catches in this game. For a minute there, we thought he might have got hurt because he was being used so much. But it was nice to see Trey Palmer. He didn't do anything spectacular in the running, in the kick return, punt return game. So I'm not saying he definitely won a spot. Bub Means, on the other hand, looked really good. His only problem, his 3 years with the Saints so far, has been his health. There was even some talk that because he's such a big wide receiver, he might ought to think about learning tight end so he could have a place on the team. Well, tight end room's pretty full too. But Bub Means stood out. He's been standing out in training camp, and he was impressive in this first preseason game. So let's see if Trey Palmer or Bub Means can continue this through the last two preseason games. Exciting stuff. Trey Palmer and Bub Means both have a chance to make this team. Zach Wilson, if you keep a third quarterback and you keep Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler and Zach Wilson, then you're going to be cutting another position group short. So I can see keeping six wide receivers and Trey Palmer above Means being one of them. But yeah, it'd be pretty tough. All right, defensively, who are the standouts? Well, I got to say, defensive lineman Christian Miller. There's not a lot that you can put in the stat sheet to show exactly how impactful this guy was when he was on the field. Our defense looked pretty good in the first half, and then Christian Miller had to go into the injury tent. And after that happened, everything went to hell in a handbasket for our defense, our running defense. So, yeah, if you're not sure how impactful Christian Miller was by looking at the stats, just think about it that way. Remember, Jacksonville only scored 6 points, and then Christian Miller went into the injury tent, and then we lost the game. And we looked pretty bad against the run in the second half. So there you go. Christian Miller, second round pick, rookie, playing everywhere, looking really good. How about edge rusher Michael Heldman? Oh, yeah. I made a prediction that he was going to look great in preseason. Of course he is. And he did. 2 sacks, 3 total tackles for a loss. He was also active on special teams. Heldman is a guy well, you really want to cheer for him. You really want him to succeed. And I think a huge success for Michael Heldman would be for him to make the practice squad and to stick around. Because I don't think he's going to make the active 53. I don't think he's going to make our 53-man roster. We've got too many edge rushers, and I would even put Chris Rump ahead of Heldman, even though Rump is technically a linebacker now. Rump has already proven he can play edge. So Heldman's one of those guys that, I mean, he would have to continue to do this for the rest of the preseason. Then there would have to be some injuries involved for him to make the 53-man roster. Kind of reminds me of Nico Lelos, the guy that got 2 or 3 sacks in the preseason game and then, disappeared when he had to play against the starters. So Heldman is a really good story. Keep him on the practice squad. Let's get him a year or two under his belt on our team, and then he looks like a gamer, so maybe we have something there. Linebacker Jalen Ford. I love Ford. He was injured as a rookie, so he didn't get to see a lot of playing time. And then last year, his second year with the team, he had to learn a whole new system with Brandon Staley coming in. But I liked Ford coming out of Texas. I thought Jalen Ford would be an ideal guy to have the green dot on his helmet and to be a middle linebacker. I was excited about that. I thought that the potential was there. The thing about the Saints is we're always so deep at linebacker. We have so many good linebackers all the time. So Demario Davis isn't here anymore, and we've got a bunch of great linebackers, Danny Stutzman and Pete Werner, and we just went and got what's his name from Atlanta, Caden Ellis. And Caden Ellis is probably more of a will. We didn't play Danny Stutzman or Caden Ellis or Pete Werner. Werner's hurt, and Danny Stutzman is going to be part of that mix. But will Danny Stutzman wear the green dot? I'm hearing Caden Ellis, even though he's playing the will, he'll probably wear the green dot. So I think Jalen Ford's a great guy to have. You got Isaiah Stallbird, who's really good too. Now, Ford is great at special teams. So is Isaiah Stallbird. And Ford was able to go out there as the middle linebacker, the starting middle linebacker, and in the first half looked great. Got an interception. We held Jacksonville to 6 points. I'm so excited Jalen Ford's worked out in this system. And, you bring in Jones. former LSU guy who played special teams for Tampa Bay last year. Deion Jones, who was a great linebacker through his whole career, but he's 31 years old now. And is he going to beat out this guy? Is he going to beat out Jalen Ford? I mean, I don't know. Ford is a really young, really good special teamer. And then he goes out there and plays linebacker and shows speed, shows a nose for the ball. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe keep Deion Jones ahead of Isaiah Stallbird. I wouldn't want to do that either. Not to mention the coach's kid. Sermon looked pretty good yesterday too. But yeah, kudos to Jalen Ford, a winner in this game. Proved to me that he's was worth the draft pick a couple of years ago, and definitely keeping him on this team. At cornerback, well, Martin Emerson. Those one-on-ones early in training camp, it looked like Emerson was exposed. And I thought maybe Isaac Yadam and Emerson was going to go down to the wire, who would be your number one backup outside cornerback. Martin Emerson looked awful in those one-on-one drills to start training camp. And he wasn't making anything happen in team drills. But for the last couple of days in training camp, he's turned a corner. Seems like he's gotten comfortable in this defense. He's actually starting to make plays in training camp. And then we get the game. And Isaac Adam doesn't do too much. And Martin Emerson looks really good. So, wow, it happened. It finally happened. I was worried. I mean, I'm still a little nervous about the depth at outside corner. But Martin Emerson has easily taken over the number 3 spot. And Isaac Yadam is the one I'm worried about now. The other cornerback I'm going to mention, Jaden Price. Wow. The undrafted guy. He has a stint in was it UFL? And then we get him last year, and he looked good in preseason. I remember him looking good in preseason. We kept him on the practice squad all year long this past year. And then we're giving him a shot to play nickel because we're desperate for nickel, and Price is looking really good. He might keep Lorenzo Styles as our number 3 nickel, and Price is going to earn a spot on this roster because he's a good return man and he's valuable at nickel. So Terrell Burgess was the veteran guy who could play safety, special teams, and nickel that I thought you had to keep, the coach's kid, kind of. And Terrell Burgess got hurt in the joint practice, and I don't know how long TB's going to be out. But Jaden Price, not only is he keeping Lorenzo Styles at bay and keeping a firm grasp of number 2 at nickel, he might actually get some first team reps. So Jonas Sanker, you're going to have to show something at nickel because Jaden Price is showing it. In training camp, he's putting his hands on the ball. The biggest complaint about Price at nickel so far in training camp was that he wasn't intercepting the ball. He was just blocking the passes. And you get pass breakups, I'm telling you're going to be making a lot of money in this league. Oh, but he can't secure the interception. Well, he read the ball perfectly in this preseason week 1 game. He gets the interception. He was also returning kicks. I don't know if he can return punts. But I think Jaden Price has definitely earned a spot on this team. This is something I fought against personally because I had faith that a veteran should be there. I wanted a veteran guy, and Terrell Burgess, even though he's not a great nickelback, he's a veteran, and I felt better. I thought we should go out and get a veteran on top of retaining either Ugo Amadi or Terrell Burgess. We retain Terrell Burgess. We don't go get a veteran nickel besides that. And we put our faith in these guys. Jaden Price and Beanie Bishop was the other one. Well, we cut Beanie Bishop, who immediately got picked up by the Chicago Bears. And by the way, yesterday, Beanie Bishop had 2 interceptions for the Bears. So Dennis Allen picking up the guys we're cutting, and they're looking good playing for him in Chicago. I just had to throw that out there, but hey, Jaden Price, Let's keep a hold of this guy. I don't think Jaden Price makes it to the practice squad if we cut him this time around. I think Jaden Price is gonna have some buzz around the league. He keeps performing like he did yesterday in the preseason game. And the last winner I'm going to mention, kicker Tanner Brown. It's a competition right now between Charlie Smith and Tanner Brown, and it's been kind of even. Matter of fact, after the first week of training camp, I was giving the big thumbs up to Charlie Smith because he hadn't missed a kick, and Tanner Brown had missed, I believe, two. Well, since that happened, this past week of training camp, it's been kind of everybody's missing, and they're pretty much even now. So whatever happens in these games is probably going to determine who's going to be our kicker. And Tanner Brown made every kick, and Charlie Smith went out there and missed one. He missed one badly. I don't know if it was the snap or the hold. I seriously doubt it was the snap from Zach Wood, and I don't know if it was the hold or not. Never got any clarification on that. But Tanner Brown gets a big thumbs up for me. Personally, I would keep Tanner Brown as my kicker. I would try to get Charlie Smith through waivers again, and I would keep him on the roster reserve thing again in on the practice squad because I believe we can keep Charlie Smith all this year on the practice squad without it counting as a practice squad roster spot. So keep Smith on the practice squad again. One more year. He's got to improve that accuracy. I don't know how long you can do this with your foreign players, but I think that would be, you could keep both of them that way. Because I think if you try to cut Tanner Brown, if he makes it through waivers, you'd be using one of 16 roster spots on your practice squad to keep Brown around. And since Brown was the special teams player of the league in the UFL this past spring season, then chances are he's not going to stay on your practice squad long. If somebody like Sean Payton gets sick and tired of his field goal kicker, someone like that who's watching a guy miss 5 or 6 kicks, they're going to just come and scoop Tanner Brown. I don't know if they'll do that with Charlie Smith. I don't think they would. Not after that miss that Charlie had yesterday. Speaking of misses, let's talk about the losers in yesterday's preseason game. And here's the list of the losers. I don't want to judge anything too highly or too poorly, but quarterback Spencer Rattler. We didn't win a lot of games when he was our starter last year. Overall, as a quarterback, he played pretty good, but fairly or unfairly, quarterbacks are judged by how many games you win. We went 1-7 with Spencer Rattler as our starter. When it got to the point where Rattler in the post-game press conferences was saying, I did my part, that's when I started to think, yeah, okay, we need to put somebody else in there because if you're the quarterback and the leader of the team and you think you did your part and we lost the game, then maybe we should just try something else for a change. So now, I have all the confidence in the world Spencer Rattler can do his job. And if the talent level around him is better than what it was last year, then you might actually get a win. If you're making all your field goals, if you're not giving up that hidden yardage with poor punting and turning the ball over. But then Spencer Rattler had his hand in turning the ball over quite a bit last year toward the end, right before he was removed. It was as if as long as you don't turn the ball over, and then he started turning the ball over. Okay. Well, yesterday was another one where he avoids a sack and he doesn't secure the ball and he tries to make too much happen and then he gets a strip fumble. Our defense went out there, held Jacksonville to minus yardage. They still got 3 points out of it because Spencer Rattler gave up that football and really good field position for Jacksonville. So you can play quarterback good and we lose the game. I can tolerate that. But when you're one of the things you did was one of the reasons we lost, that's when I got to draw the line. So what is it? Is Spencer Rattler just not good enough or is he just putting way too much pressure on himself? We always hear about that, how Spencer Rattler fought through all kinds of stuff, and he had to fight through it with the Netflix thing. He had to fight through it when he was in college and had to go up against Caleb Williams or whatever, and then he had to come into the league and he had to fight for it with Tyler. So, well, okay, great, resilient dude, but he always seems to be in a situation where he has to fight his way out of it. He always seems to be there. I can't blame the whole world against him. This is your chance, Spencer Rattler. You got to go out there and you got to show everybody you're better than 60 something other quarterbacks so you can be a backup in this league. I mean, at worst, you're going to be our backup. But if Zach Wilson keeps playing well, you might be looking for a job. So you're going to go out there and play for, a starting gig is what I thought you were doing. And then you crap the bed. So you got two more preseason games to go out there and to do something. And you've got a team that loves you and a fan base that really, really loves you, especially if you produce. So, we like you right now. And I want the best for you. So you got two games, Rat. Get out there and do something with it, please. Because nothing would warm my heart more than to see you given an opportunity and you to succeed. But you were given an opportunity last year. And you've got two more preseason games. You have an opportunity still here as well. All right, running back CJ Donaldson. Not much you can do, and you don't get a lot of practice time in training camp. We're down to three running backs for the whole game, and then Audric Estime gets hurt in the first half. So CJ Donaldson had, I believe, 4 carries, and he had 0 yards total. You're running behind an offensive line who most of them probably aren't even going to be on the practice squad. You've got another coach calling the plays, not necessarily Kellen Moore. We let assistant coaches call the defensive plays and the offensive plays during preseason, which is awesome. I love that. You put all that together, and then it's not really C.J. Donaldson's fault. Well, you're a big guy. You come from a big program. I had you circled as a priority undrafted free agent. You were on a short list of mine. You're here now. You're a huge dude, and I think you could fall forward and get a yard. So I'm a little bummed out that in the few carries you did have, admittedly, you got no yards. So you're on this list. Tight end Maliki Mataval, he's looked so good in training camp that I don't expect him to go out in these preseason games and to be ineffective. It might not be fair, but that's the way it is. He was ineffective. Okay. Whether you're dropping the ball, whether you're missing a block, whatever. I expect you, if you're going to stand out like you have in training camp, I expect you to stand out in these preseason games, especially in the second half. I mean, you're a guy that's gonna probably make the team because you look so good in practice. So going out there and playing somebody else's third string and having no little to no effect at all is not a good look for me. Yeah, I'll keep 6 wide receivers and put you on the practice squad if you're not going to do anything during these preseason games. Maliki Mataval. And that's how you pronounce his name, Mataval. All right, WWL, let's get it right. Maliki Mataval. All right. Don't just ask him. I mean, you have access. Jesus. All right, next on my list of losers is every defensive lineman after the top five. And this is my favorite. This is my favorite part of this list, of the loser list. I was listening to someone watching the game on YouTube, and they were doing, the play-by-play. And I don't want to call anybody out trizzy, but after you've had enough to drink, okay, where you can barely talk and the second half hasn't started yet, then I, as a fan, am not going to get what I'm looking for when I'm listening to someone else call the game play by play. So it got to a point where he was cursing the heavens because our run defense was looking so bad, but he was failing to mention who was actually in the game at defensive line at the time. So, I had to do my research after I got off work, and Yeah, basically what happened is your top five guys were not on the defensive line. Christian Miller was, but then right before half, he got injured. So you're talking about Davin Gottschall, Vernon Broughton, Nathan Shepard, Jonathan Ridgway, Christian Miller. That's your top five. Those are going to be your five starting defensive linemen. So you've got some depth. You've got Gottschall, Broughton, and Shepard as your starters. Christian Miller's going to be all over the place. Jonathan Ridgway is going to be all over the place. You've got some good depth. But after Christian Miller went down, everybody else was not very good. And it showed. I mean, when Jacksonville converted that 2 point conversion by running the ball, I would have done the same thing if I was Jacksonville because they were getting so much done on the ground. Christian Boyd, Miles Cole, JVR, Suggs, all right, Garrett Nelson, who we just signed last week, Khalil Saunders, who we just signed a couple of days ago, and somebody named Brian Taylor, who I think we just signed. We might have picked him up at a gas station on the way to the game because that dude just showed up. And because we didn't have Gottschall, we didn't have Broughton, we didn't have Shepard, we didn't have Ridgway, and Miller was probably not going to play the second half anyway. But then Miller ends up getting hurt anyway. So we probably added this Taylor guy. I think he played for Miami or Florida. He played for the Florida Gators. We probably just added him just to have a body. So you're talking about Garrett Nelson, Khalil Saunders, Brian Taylor. All three of these defensive linemen just got here within the last week. So no wonder we look bad against the run. No wonder, because once Christian Miller got out, there was nothing happening. So I'm not saying that Cole or Suggs or Nelson or Saunders or Taylor are no good. I'm just saying that in this game, they were no good. And they're going to have to, they're going to have to earn some playing time. They're probably going to be forced to play, and we're probably not going to look good against the run, and we're probably not going to keep any of these guys on our practice squad. I think we had Garrett Nelson on the practice squad last year momentarily, but we ended up getting rid of him anyway because there were other people worthy of the spot. I got cats that are going nuts right now, and it's distracting. Okay, so next on my list of losers, cornerback Isaac Yiadom. I'm sorry, but you're a veteran. You've been in the league for a long enough. You've been with this team for this is your second year on in this squad in this system, and you looked really good when you were with Dennis Allen's defense. Maybe Chicago should trade for you and give us a seventh round pick, and we should just get rid of you. If you're going to go out there and you're not going to make anything happen, I expect Isaac Yiadom to have a good game when you're playing against second and third team guys. I really do. Yiadom just isn't very good right now. So, yeah, I thought it was going to be competition, Yiadom or Emerson, and I was actually giving the edge to Yiadom. But Emerson's on the winners list right now for this first preseason game. Yiadom, you on the losers list, and you need to do something. I mean, you need to start getting your hands on the ball, and you need to start making tackles on special teams. You need to start making a name for yourself if you want to keep the rest of the Saints content providers from panicking when we talk about the depth at outside corner for this team. Because I'd put Jaden Price at outside corner before I would put Yiadom. That's how I'm feeling right now. And the last person on the losers list, kicker Charlie Smith. You miss a kick wide right. I mean, I don't care if it's 53 yards. You have the strongest leg in the league. I believe you could make a 70-yard field goal, but you have to get it over the crossbar for it to count in America. So, Charlie Smith, you've had a lot of time to figure this out. The story of Charlie Smith making it in this league is such a good story. And I'll never forget when he kicked that game winner in preseason a couple of years ago. It's one of those magical moments that I'll never forget. Even though it didn't matter because it was a preseason game, it felt so good to see this kid from Ireland go out there who had barely ever kicked a football and to win a football game for his new team. I mean, that's a moment that he'll have forever, and I'm going to cherish that moment forever. But I think the story is bigger and better than the actual player because you have to be accurate to make it in this league. And if we can keep you on the practice squad as a roster exempt and have 17 players instead of 16 and you're the 17th player, then you are good enough, your leg is good enough to keep around for one more year. But there's no way you make the team as our kicker unless you go the rest of training camp and the rest of preseason without missing a kick. That's the only way we're keeping you. Tanner Brown would have to miss 5 or 6 of them, and you would have to make everything. Otherwise, the roster exempt to me is more important, and I'd keep Tanner Brown around on my active roster, and I would keep you on the roster exempt on the practice squad. Yeah, Charlie. So sorry, Charlie, but the story is too magical for your ability, apparently. But hey, the story could still be told. You could still write the magical story, Charlie Smith. All right, there you go. That is my breakdown of the first game, week one preseason. We win it 20-6, and then a bunch of future Walmart checkout clerks went out there and tried to earn a practice squad spot, and it was kind of ugly at times. I want to give some kudos to quarterback Hunter Deckers, though, who got almost no snaps in training camp and then was put out there, and he almost brought us back and won. So some kudos to Hunter Deckers. The first 2 drives he was out there, it was like, oh my God, he's way above his head. But but he never got any snaps. He never practiced the way everybody else was able to practice. And then for him to almost bring us back, and for him to not turn the ball over, that's another thing. Kudos to Hunter Deckers, and hopefully he's on the practice squad. Um, there you go. I'm Joe. Subscribe to Roosevelt 10 for more videos about the Saints. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Who dat?